Baba, sioni mwanga mahali popote. Yesu nimefinywa sana. Nitakungoja Yesu, nitakungoja, 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 ninakungoja Yesu, ninakungoja, ninakungoja.
Hello everybody and welcome to Tuesday Connect Live, where we take some time to connect with you concerning various aspects of our lives. My name is Kathy Matei and I will be your host today, and I am especially excited because we have gone through season 1 of Tuesday Connect. We've had 12 episodes where we have talked about various issues that affect our lives, and we would like you to join us today to end this season of Tuesday Connect. So let me just take some time to appreciate you for joining us, and for those ones who will join us in the future, who will be watching this final episode in the future. We would also like you to connect with us, either on YouTube or on Facebook. We know that you have been watching these episodes, and we know that you have actually been asking quite a number of questions, either down below on the comment sections where the episodes were not live. We would like to take some time to answer those questions and to read your comments today. And so please feel free to go down to the comment section and say hi, or write a question that you may have regarding either one of the episodes that you have watched. But let me just start by saying that I am not alone on this platform that we are in right now. I am joined by various panelists who actually were involved in various episodes of Tuesday Connect, and we will be taking some time to just appreciate them at this point in time. So let me start with Pastor Sammy Thiga, Senior Pastor, Mamlaka Hill Chapel, and then we have John Agagwa, Pastor here at Mamlaka Hill Chapel, and we have Njeri Mwangi, who is in charge of Ladies Aglow here at Mamlaka Hill Chapel. So here's what we're going to do. We will take some time to get to know a little bit about them, right? And so let me just start here. Sam, just tell us a little bit about yourself, what is especially you do here at Mamlaka Hill Chapel, and one thing that we do not know about you.
Okay, I guess the first two you already said. You know, Sammy Thiga, what I do here, I pastor. I want to say I senior pastor, but I don't know if that's the thing. I pastor, and I do the work of shepherding.
Right.
And it's quite a lot, but there is grace for that. Maybe the one that people don't know is something a little bit about me. So I'm the second born in a family of 3.
Right. So you were the last born until life happened.
You can put it like that, you know. And then I'm a cyclist. I really do love cycling.
Do you love it, or do you actually do it?
I think you know you love something if you can do it, even if you don't have people to do it with.
Right.
You know, I don't need someone to call me to go cycling, so I love doing that.
All right.
Yeah.
Asante sana. John?
Yeah, I think the first part also has been introduced. John Agagwa, as Javier is the pastor for the youth department. Something people don't know about me,
other than the fact that you were a Dunda guy, and then we'll explore that a little bit later. But yes, John.
I really enjoy finding out and engaging with latest tech. Yeah. So I'm likely up to date with what's the latest technology in the computer industry, what's the latest technology in the smartphone industry. Yeah, so I just sit down sometimes and watch clips about what's coming up in the, in the future and what could be the new thing we're looking at.
So what you are is a geek.
Yes, no. Cool geek. Yeah.
All right.
It's crazy how today you can't just walk into a shop and buy anything.
Yeah.
You have to do like mad research.
I know, right?
Research.
It takes like 6 months, before you can buy anything.
All right. Asante sana, John. Jerry? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I I fellowship and I serve in the women's ministry, but also I also help out with Kingdom Skaters. Yeah,
Help out?
Yes, help out teaching kids how to skate. Something maybe people don't know about me. Maybe I like playing with kids. And anywhere there is a ball, I will enjoy. I'll have fun and.
Right. One other thing that you do not know about Njeri, she's being modest here. So let us help her out. The one thing that you do not know about Njeri is that she is one of the best skaters in Kenya and even outside. Yeah? Africa.
Yeah, she's represented the country internationally.
So if you want to learn how
feel
to
free
skate,
to correct us if we are underlining your.
oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe
just
she's
say
saying Kenya and it's Africa.
All right.
So even as Toro for I help in Kingdom Skaters. She helps from the front.
From the front. Yeah. Helping is getting water for the kids huko nyuma, which she does not do. She does not do. All right, so we will take time to go through the various episodes that we have gone through before. The first one being family worship, where Samdi and myself had some conversation around how to do worship as a family at home. And Samdi talked about how they specifically do family worship at home. And he talked about how, they sing together at home. They reenact stories of the Bible, himself and Tweedly, in front of their children. What else, Samdi, did you say that you do?
Hymns. Yeah, hymns. We sing hymns a lot. Amma, you already said hymns.
I hadn't said hymns.
We do hymns a lot.
Great.
We sing. And songs just have that, the power of passing on doctrine and teaching about Jesus just in a nice, creative way, because our children can remember those.
So, Samdi, I'm curious to find out, Njeri and Mwangi also have 2 kids, right? So I'm curious to find out, what mode of family worship do you guys do at home? What has been helpful for you as you have sought to do family worship with your family at home?
Okay, maybe I can pick from where he started, the hymns thing. So when I listened, I was like, this is something we can try out at home. So it's really been helping. Like before guys wake up, I put on a hymn, even just an instrumental. And when they wake up, I realize, okay, people they are getting into the day nicely. Sio kuamka when tumeanza kukeleleshana. I mean, it's a smooth way of getting into the day. So that has really helped. We've also, my husband, he put a printout of the Apostles' Creed next to the sink.
Yeah. Oh.
So that when we are going to wash hands, okay, this was, I don't know if it was for us or for the kids, but yeah, so they've learned the Apostles' Creed. Tim can read. Kayla still doesn't know how to read. She will she'll repeat what the brother is doing. So they've been able to learn the Apostles' Creed. When they go wash hands, instead of doing the 20 seconds or sing happy birthday, so as we do Apostles' Creed, so we believe in God the Father Almighty.
Such a deep family.
Yeah, so that's, I think that has helped.
That's wonderful. Sam, you said that.
Feels like the next time the kids come to this church, they will pin the 95 on our door here.
Oh my goodness.
Thanks for the idea.
Well, let's see if that will happen. Someday I remember that when we had that conversation with you, you said that you wanted to start doing catechism with your kids. So you see, it's one thing to say something and then episodes, but episodes come to an end,
and then
we revisit. So please let us know, how is that going for you?
So, well, we're doing it differently. I think I said in the last episode, I'm not sure whether I said this, that I was hoping to pick up like the Westminster Confession, and then we go through that with the children. We had started at some point, but we're not doing that right now. Right now, what we're doing is, by God's grace, we've been very consistent with our Bible study at home.
Oh, okay.
So somewhere between like 8:30 and 9, or sometimes 8 to 8:30 there, we normally have devotion with the children. where we sing songs, and then I open the Bible, and then we just go through a book together. So we just finished the book of Acts. Now we've gone to Luke.
So cool.
Yeah, and so what I'm doing is theology is just coming out, doctrines are just coming out. You know, who is Christ? You know, how was he born, and so on. So we're getting to teach that to the children. So I'm not using the Westminster Confession. I'm just using the Bible as we're telling the stories. You know, just to pass on some of these truths also to the children.
Right.
And I think that also works.
Right.
Okay.
Sam, how do you reenact when you're reenacting stories of the Bible? How do you reenact the devil?
The devil is easy.
Oh,
the
yeah?
devil is very easy. Yeah. No, so you just take like a shuka, just one of those like shukas around the house.
A black one.
Not even a black one, but hopefully one that doesn't have many colors.
Okay.
I just have like a green one. So they cover myself, you know, and I have this bad voice. And then I tell my children to do bad things. You know? In fact, I tell children to do bad things that people could tell them to do, you know, and keep it a secret. You know, so that they will get to know, hey, anyone who tells me to do these sort of things is just they're being led by the devil. You know, that's a lie, and na. So yeah, we've reenacted the devil so many times.
All right.
Yeah, we've had fun. We're having so much fun.
Well, I pray for grace for your family and for your family as well as you continue to disciple your kids. But Agagwa, you and I are in an interesting position right here, right? So we in the episode that we did with Samdi, we concentrated a lot on how to disciple the children, right, in terms of family worship. So how do people like you and myself and other family constructs that don't necessarily have mother, father, and children, how does family worship look for people like us?
Yeah, thank you. It's a space I think that many people are probably in, especially if you're newly married. So it means kids are not yet in the picture, and that period of time can be different. For the couples, maybe it's not too long.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a year or two.
Yeah.
For others, could be a bit longer. And so maybe the thing I've thought about, maybe just one challenge and one practical thing. I discovered that the challenge becomes when you guys are having a dome, right? Dome is Greek for conflict.
For kaudu.
For kaudu. Right? So you're sort of not in speaking terms at the time. Maybe it's either misunderstanding, somebody's done this thing. And that's one of the things that I quickly started to realize in marriage, because for us, the practical thing we started to do is, you know, before we sleep, we sort of read a text.
Right.
Well, at some point we had like, okay, so we're going to be reading the scriptures, expounding the scriptures. Then because of that, you know, it's quite a long dini. You tend to get the feeling that you need a lot of time in order to be able to do it. So we got an idea from a friend and we picked it up. So what we do is we read the text, just a portion. Say we're going through the book of Colossians, we read chapter 1, maybe verse 1 to 5. Then you say, what's one of your big takeouts right now as we've read that? And she says a big takeout, I say mine. And then we make a prayer. Takes less than 5 minutes. But that way, over time, you're keeping each other accountable and actually becoming spiritual friends. The difficulty lies when you're supposed to do that and you're mad at each other for something. Someone's done something and so there's this tension in the home. So what do? You see, at that point, it's either you go like, you know, throw away the Bible or dini, or allow that space to be the avenue for actual reconciliation.
Let me tell you, John. Have you ever read a text of the Bible together, and then your spouse takes a break for you to internalize, not for them to internalize, for you to internalize, because they feel that this speaks directly to you.
They will put a timer, 1 minute.
You know? Yeah. I mean, because they put VCCTC on the specific words that they feel would be helpful in your life.
You know,
I don't know if that has happened to you.
That's a phrase that usually on the Psalms, that seller. Just take some time and...
Especially if you're going through the book of Proverbs, where you pause can be life or death in a young marriage. Because when if you pause at, seest thou a man hasty in their speech, And you just felt like somebody was a bit too hasty in their
Fella.
speech.
Yes.
They're like, fella. Like, oh.
You guys use King James for your family devotion.
Has a
Such
style.
a deep farm.
Yes.
That was
Oh dear. Or when you're praying and then you're like, this part of the prayer, it wasn't really directed at God. You're telling your spouse, but you're just saying to God.
Yeah.
God hears in the proxy.
Yeah.
Really, it's God is the proxy here.
Yes.
It's like,
Yes.
yeah. Well, so I think those are some of the challenges, but part of it is, one, if you're disciplined about it, whether or not there's a tension in the home, that becomes a platform that forces you to talk about it.
Right.
You actually have to look at, okay, so let's resolve this, or let's go through this text. So, and then building a spiritual friendship with your spouse. Because I think if you're not intentional about it during the times when the children are not there, it will either be not very genuine when the children come, or it will be harder to start when the children come. So just let the children already found you guys having a certain spiritual friendship and allow that to progress.
It's interesting, John, that we've talked about domes in marriage and relationships, because episode 2 and episode 3 talked about communication in marriage and conflict resolution in marriage. And in this episode, this very episode, one of the panelists there, I won't mention who, said that the struggle to become one in marriage is a sin issue. You know, and I think we all agree with that. But some I'd just like to ask, so because we are all going to be bogged down by some level of sinful nature in ourselves, regardless of whether we believe in God or not, or how far our sanctification process has gone. I just want to ask, if I am a sinner and my lovely husband that I love in like with all my heart. You see, I'm even lacking words to say how much I love my husband. But I hope that you are watching and see that I'm lacking words.
The said husband.
Said husband. So, myself, I'm a sinner saved by grace. My husband is a sinner saved by grace. We are coming together, and we are working towards oneness in marriage, right, Sam? So now, since this oneness in marriage is being compromised by our sinful nature, so then is it possible for us to really ever attain oneness in marriage, like the Lord would want us to do?
I think how I would answer that question is to ask when is oneness achieved? And if we hear from Christ, you know, how Christ looked at this issue, talking about divorce, I forget where exactly in the scriptures, he said that we become one when we get married. You know, he said, you know, that's why a man shall leave his father and his mother, and the two shall become one. Right. You know, he said they're no longer two, but one. So the ones whom the Lord has brought together, let no one put asunder. He was pretty much going against divorce here. And of course, the reason why people will divorce is because they don't feel one. But Christ said, hey, you're one already. How can you be going separate ways, or how can someone be trying to, you know, separate the two of you? So what happens in marriage, Kathy, is that we are declared one, and then we work towards our oneness in a marriage. You know, kind of like the way we become when we become Christians, we are declared righteous. You know, and then we work towards, you know, achieving that righteousness.
Right.
I think it's the same thing in marriage. You know, in fact, marriage is like one of the only institutions that awards you a certificate before you begin the journey. So you got that certificate of oneness.
Yeah.
You know, and so part of your work remains, you know, committing yourself on this journey of oneness that you are already declared, you know, that you have at the beginning there. What happens, I feel like, is many people have this whole romantic notion about marriage and my spouse, and you even saved them on your phone as angel. My angel. Then you get married, you realize they're a sinner. Now you want out. You know, hey, be very careful when you're courting. And during that's the time to make up your mind. Am I going to stay with this sinner the rest of my life? Am I willing to do so? Because people do stand up before the Pasi and a crowd of witnesses, and they say some pretty outrageous things. for better or for worse.
With tears in their eyes. And,
Rich
and a
and poor.
quivering lip. A quivering lower lip.
Yeah, what are you saying, For
Yeah.
better, for worse?
Yeah.
Man, that's a crazy statement.
Yeah.
And you're saying this about another sinner. Unless you were mistaken about the nature of this person.
Yeah.
Maybe it might help in PMCC if we tell people, just change. If you've saved your boyfriend or girlfriend's name as Angel in your phone, just change it to Sinner.
Right now.
Just for a month.
Do it
just
right
so that
now.
that can sink in. Because this is what you're going to
We
see.
should have been told these things.
You
We should
know?
have been told this before.
Yeah. Yeah. Any
The
thoughts?
sinner that I'm committing myself to. Save it.
Please. Yes.
I think somebody rightly said that it takes a couple of years after you say I do to realize what you did. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of truth to that statement. Like, oh, so this is what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think something I found personally encouraging, I was meditating at some day on Psalm 86:11. David is making a prayer before God. And the second part of that prayer is, unite my heart, O Lord, to fear you.
Okay.
And then it hit me, okay, wait, what is David praying here? David is saying, God, help me unite my own heart. So there's a certain admission that David is making that even within my heart, I am not united. Like I am divided within myself. So that's, I think, a first step to make towards attaining unity, is to realize that it's hard enough to attain unity within yourself before you even starting about attaining unity with somebody else. And this can come out, I think, in some ways, like especially when you're young, and I being a youth pastor and dealing with young people, sometimes someone will come to you and saying, okay, I'm trying to choose a spouse. I feel like I love this about this guy, and I feel like I love this about this lady, but I don't know, so do I go with this one? Do I say yes to this one? So even then, you're not united in yourself. There's a certain degree of conflict and disagreement about what to do.
Yeah.
In adulthood, perhaps that manifests, do I take this job? Do I not take it? Do I pursue this line of career? Do I not take it? And that continues. I mean, the manifestations change, but the center of it is the same. There is a lack of unity within your own self. And so I think the first thing to say is this: if I have not achieved unity within myself, like I am still divided within myself, how am I going to achieve unity with another person? And there's a humility that I will bring in to say, you know what, it will have to take the hand of God to bring unity between two people.
Yeah.
Because sin has broken not just the relationship we have with one another, but also the relationship we have with ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think it's a humbling thing, so that even when you do sense that there is no unity between you and your spouse, not to be surprised, because first of all, there is no unity within yourself about some really critical matters.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to serving God,
Yeah.
you're struggling with sin, but you really love God. Like when Bishop was preaching on Sunday, about how with one word, with same mouth, you're cursing God and blessing people.
Yeah.
Not so much that you're not necessarily a Christian, but you're struggling. It's a real struggle. And so if at that point I'm actually not united, I shouldn't be surprised that in the context of marriage and family that's not happening. And so in the same way that God is helping us in sanctification to come to the unity of the faith, then we can also trust God to bring that same unity over many years, perhaps in marriage, to begin to bring that semblance of unity, as Pastor Sam has brought out.
I think the key word here is commitment.
Commitment.
Let's remove this romantic notion about what oneness is. I don't feel compatible with that guy.
It's not about feelings.
Yeah, but it's not about feelings. You commit yourself, You said I do.
Yeah.
That oneness started there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
And I think we are compatible in the one way that truly matters. We are both sinners.
Oh,
So that we
and
can
that's
agree.
an
Like once you
intense
agree
amount
that
of
Common
compatibility.
that's
denominator.
a common denominator. It's like, okay, to me as a unity, we are both sinners. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that.
All right, let's zero in a little bit on the men, right? When it comes to you, your struggles, your issues, and your relationships. We actually had an episode 4, where we had Pastor Mwangi and Pastor Isaac come in and talk about that. And they said things like, men live the socialite-like life, In reality, you know that men get to hear things best from other men. That men are not very, a lot of men are not very key when it comes to seeking and searching for accountability with other men. I remember even Mwangi said something like, "Ati no MP continues to campaign after elections." Ati, and that's why wooing stops at some point after you get married.
Where did he let that? That's a secret among us
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Not
Right?
just talking
Right?
Tell people that.
I have seen that in
And
reality.
let me just say, guys, that today we are privileged to have the wonderful lady in one of their lives
The
seated
victim. The
here.
victim of that
Who is
statement.
mad at the victim.
To come and to just answer this question, Jerry. How are you helped by that episode?
Manze, it brought light. It brought a lot of light. Now I got to understand why my husband behaves in certain ways.
When you ask the way you do. When he acts the way he does.
For starters, you are campaigning, and then when they reach this, I mean, they don't campaign when they reach this other side. Eh?
Yeah. Oh,
So
man.
that one I have seen it.
Haven't we all?
I have seen it firsthand. But I realized
Sorry.
that
Just because there is no witness, I'd like to say the situation is very different.
In our
Very
homes.
different in our homes.
Okay.
You can proceed.
Please,
My wife cannot connect.
Nobody
My
verifies
wife
that.
cannot connect with that
Twitly
particular
and
issue.
Liz, please write down on the comments or
down
text
some-
me.
yes.
Just text me. I'll read. Thanks. Thanks in advance.
so there's a way, you know, for ladies when we're going through something hard. I'll keep texting him. Oh, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, imagine this happened.
Yeah.
But Mwangi, on the other hand, when he's going through something, he will wait till he has sorted it out to completion. Then when we are home later is when he's telling me, hey, by the way, I was in this bus, moto ikawaka, I had to jump out through the window. There's a time we were living, it's still where we stay, but that day he was taking the bus. So he had to jump out of the window.
Hiya.
It was like at 7 p.m.
True story.
He had his laptop. He jumped out of a Kenya bus.
Wow.
Okay, a city shuttle, those big buses.
Yeah.
And he's coming to tell me this later when now we are almost, the day is winding off. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me then? So he will deal with these issues. Whatever struggles he's having,
Yeah.
he won't share them until he has completely sorted it out. And me, Amuku, complaining. I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Now how can I'm not even going to help. I would not have helped you.
Yeah.
Why are you telling me now?
Yeah.
So just that bit, I think I've come to understand that he wants to deal with an issue and then come later when
Things are
ako tu
fine.
poa, he's already sorted it out himself.
There's something I heard you mention there, that men live socialite kind of lives.
You want me to explain?
No, I just had that and it stuck with me. I was like, these views
me
do not
too.
represent the
Do
views
not
of
represent the views.
Hey, Pastor Isaac, come and tell us.
You cannot use men and socialites in the same sentence.
It's just to help us understand the picture.
So let me try and explain. I think what I think Pastor Isaac and Mwangi were saying. You see how when us guys are from the salon and we have our makeup on, we feel that we are looking nice. We'll take a selfie. We'll put it on Instagram. You know, that's the kind of social life that a lot of the ladies live. Yeah. For dudes, you guys actually want the car and the house. You know, us guys, you look like that one day, and probably for the next month, you won't look like that. And this is fine, okay, for most ladies. For dudes, they want the car and the house and the wife and the kids to go to the school, you know? So that's what I think Mwangi and Isaac meant by that. Would you feel like you're really comparing with...
I will never deny or confirm.
There's also another thing you spoke about, that men listen to other men. So now I realized we even had to agree with Mwangi. We are like, if we can't deal with something, if you can't agree on something, So you just give me permission to talk to
holler at another
one
guy.
of your dudes. Just give me
Yeah.
permission.
Oh, yeah.
Among this, so we're like, yeah.
Yeah.
So if I have an issue, I can just go to that guy, and
Yeah.
I know Mwangi will listen to him.
That's a trade secret among men, you know. Men listen to other guys. So if you have having problems, reach out to.
So then how do
friend
I get
somehow.
my husband to listen to me someday?
You go through that guy.
Not that my husband doesn't listen to me, but
No, baby, I'm macho.
Oh,
Indeed.
Jerry, well.
Though I think that point is to ride on it, especially for younger people who are dating. You want to note that as a red flag, if especially you're a lady and your boyfriend or fiancé doesn't have men around him
Right.
to whom they actually listen.
Accountability.
That accountability, that's
Yeah.
actually a red flag. Like you
Yeah.
need to be concerned not necessarily to drop the relationship, but begin to pursue the reasons and to begin to find people around him.
Right.
Because the truth is, right now, I mean, in dating, you might be saying, yeah, but he listens to me, nini. Things might,
The China
change.
issue.
The
might
China
come,
issue
might
yeah.
come up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when now you're married, if there was no people and you're unable to resolve the conflicts by yourself and you need somebody else to speak into that space, it's going to be harder trying to get them within the context of marriage than before. So
Yeah.
I just thought
Yeah.
that's something important to mention.
I think it's really important because in, I think, episode 5, Samdi and Leah sat to talk about discipleship and accountability. And they had a wonderful time just, reflecting on the importance of having someone older that speaks into your life and for you to speak into the life of someone else.
Yeah.
And they had, I really actually enjoyed that episode.
Me too.
But I really thought that, John, you're a youth pastor and I work with young people. And I know that you can agree with me that when it comes to the issue of discipleship and accountability in this generation, it's a little bit harder than us guys when we were younger and accountability. I remember we were talking about how, you remember the lady that you talked about that went to smoke somewhere and someone out of the blue just came and chappered and they've never wanted to smoke ever again. So why is it more difficult to have discipleship and accountability with this generation at this point in time?
I think part of it is there's a brokenness. I mean, sin has broken us all, but I think the way that brokenness has manifested in the older generation and in the younger generation is different. But it's in such a way that it makes it harder for that discipleship relationship to manifest. So I think one of the ways is when I think especially about the older generation who have the capacity, because discipleship means somebody who's walked the journey, helping somebody else walk the journey together with them.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a certain sense in which somebody who's older is in a better place to disciple the younger person. But I think for the older people, the older generation, one of the struggles is really, do I have something to share? Like, I know how broken, because you're the first hand, we call it what? You're the victim of your own decisions. And you can see how your bad decisions perhaps in the past has brought you where they have.
Yeah.
And you feel like, I'm struggling in my own relationship with God. How do I help somebody else? And so maybe because of that, you shy away from inviting younger people to walk with.
Yeah.
And I think the maybe short answer to that is that in itself is the experience that you need to help the younger person with, so that they don't have to fall into the same steps that you fell into.
Yeah.
So that in itself,
Yeah.
and I mean, younger people, you probably know this, we don't like what's not authentic.
Yeah.
They tend to shy away from this person who's, your life is all made up, you didn't make. I feel like to that extent, I can't quite relate with you. So that actually makes you the best discipler, because you can sit down with someone and tell them, when I was your age, I did this and this, it was wrong, this is how it panned out, don't do that. So I think that's important. But for the younger generation, for us, it's the whole discipleship screams accountability. Discipleship tells me that somebody's gonna be asking me questions and asking me about how I'm living and offering suggestions and stuff like that. And for us, we love freedom.
Yeah.
And so younger people tend to think of accountability as loss of freedom. And I think why that's an issue is Because intuitively we know, like without anybody telling us, we know that all of life involves boundaries. All of life. Nobody lives a truly autonomous life. The problem is, and you discover this soon enough, if you're not the one who sets those boundaries, somebody else will set the boundaries for you. For example, I mean, if you decide to live the way you want and you start stealing things and doing things that are against the laws of the country, somebody's going to put you behind bars.
Yeah.
Because if you won't manage your own boundaries, the state will take it upon itself to manage those boundaries for you. And you will not like how they will manage the boundaries for you.
True.
So we know intuitively that all of life is boundaries. So which means then freedom can't be a life without boundaries. It just means knowing to set the right boundaries.
Yeah.
We made the illustration earlier on that a fish can desire to live outside of water as much as it likes. It might actually feel, I don't want to live in water, I want to live outside of water, I want to be free.
Yeah.
But that freedom will mean death.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the fish is freest most when it's in water. In the same way, God, who has created us, has created certain boundaries within which we are supposed to flourish and have freedom with human relationships.
Yep.
And so younger people should embrace that true freedom comes with a certain degree of accountability with those who've gone ahead of us, so that the older people are not afraid to approach the younger people on account of what they feel is their faults, and the younger people are not afraid to approach the older people because of feeling that they will lose their freedom. God has indicated that both will be most free in discipleship relationships.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing, John. Sam, so I don't know if at any point in time a lady has come and asked you to disciple them. Don't tell us. But is it advisable? Is it advisable for that to happen?
Let me put it in a way that is, in a very nice way. The devil is a liar.
Wow.
The devil is a liar. So personally, look, if you are discipling a lady, or a guy, for example, discipling a lady, congratulations, you're in a relationship. Okay?
Get married.
Let me just break the news to you.
Starting one.
It's not a discipling relationship. This is a relationship that could lead to other things.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just thinking, like someone like me who's married, it's not advisable for someone like me to be walking with a lady, helping them to get to know the Lord and stuff like that. Because for the reasons I said earlier, the devil is a liar. Personally, I operate with this principle of self-distrust. I mean, somebody can come and see me because of an issue. I'll probably give them one hearing. And once I establish what the issue is, if they're a lady, I'll now know who to direct them to for follow-up.
Right.
Now, I shouldn't be the one doing the follow-up, because the devil is a liar.
The devil is a liar.
And the heart is deceitful above
Above
all things.
The heart is deceitful above all things. Who can master it?
Somebody rightly said, the road to hell is paved with many good intentions.
There you go.
Man.
Yeah.
All right, I hope that you have been enjoying this session so far. What we will do is that we have another set of panelists that will come in, and we will take a break just so that we can do the change. And we would like you to just enjoy some music that has been done here at Mamlaka Hill Chapel, some of the covers that have been done here at Mamlaka Hill Chapel. And so we will be taking a break in a few minutes. But before that, we would like to just take some time to acknowledge the people who are watching us so far. So let me just start from Jerry. Would you like to do a shout out there? Who are you seeing?
I'm seeing Mombi Bugwa, SMD, Westminster Confession. You all have deep family worship models. Ha ha ha.
Where? Westminster.
Eric Mulwa says he's enjoying the show. Mombi Bugwa, we have Njeri Mushero. Lenny, umesikia? Yeah, Lenny, umesikia?
Amesikia.
We have Nicholas Bohr. He's saying men listen through male agents. So he's enjoying the show. Maybe someone else can take it from there.
Yeah, there's Mumbi Mbugwa who is saying, Tweedly kumbe ladies should adjust expectations. I think some ladies have been freed by just knowing.
Praise the Lord.
That. There is Richard Omolo saying John the philosopher. So they have decided I have become a philosopher after marriage.
Where?
Yeah.
So, no, personally, I just wanted to say my wife wrote the things she wrote here just to identify with other women, not just to make them feel bad. Just for there's comfort in numbers.
Just in case you're wondering what she wrote, true story Mumbi. Just pointing it out.
She's identifying. Kabisa, kabisa. Sam, we have Jerry Salamba on Facebook who is asking you to do a home video. You see how when you were saying that you reenact Bible stories, I think especially Jerry, you're talking about the Bible story and reenactment thing. If we just imagine Samdi and Tweedly in the house reenacting what story? What story,
Jesus,
guys? Help me out.
The devil tempting Jesus. Turn stone into bread.
I think I would be very interested to watch that as well.
Yeah. No, that will be on pay TV.
No.
Pay-per-view.
Sawa. All right, thank you so much for continuing to tune in and to connect with us. We would like you to send in your questions and your comments on the episodes of Tuesday Connect that you have watched and you have had issues on. We would like to answer those questions in this forum. And so if you're able to do that, please go down to the comment section, write down below what your questions are or your queries are, and we will be talking about them in part 2 of Tuesday Connect Live. But now we take a break. Please don't go anywhere. You'll watch maybe a video or two, and then we will be right back with a different panelist talking about episode 6 to episode 12, which, by the way, has quite the juicy stuff in there. So stay tuned. See you in a few minutes.
I must have the Savior with me, for I dare not go alone. I must feel His presence near me and His arm around me thrown. Then my soul shall fear no ill. Let Him lead me where He will. I will go without a murmur, and His footsteps follow still. I must have the Savior with me, for my faith at best is weak. He can whisper words of comfort that no other voice can speak. I must have the Savior with me in the onward march of life. Through the tempest and the sun, I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. The cross before me, the world behind me. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back, no turning back. Though none go with me, still I will follow. Though none go with me, still I will follow. Though none go with me, still I will follow. No turning back, 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 no turning back. Whoa, oh, oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. Oh, because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Every trials and temptations, is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Can we find a friend so faithful, who will all our sorrows share? Jesus knows our every weakness. Take it to the Lord in prayer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tuesday Connect Live. We are so glad that you have joined us. If you've joined us right now, if you've been with us since the very beginning of this show, we are so glad that you have been with us so far. As you have probably noticed, our panel has changed just a little bit, and so I will be taking some time to ask them to introduce themselves and allow us to get to know a little bit about themselves, right? But I would like to, before doing that, just encourage you that if you have any questions or any comments that you would like us to talk about or to answer, please feel free to go down to the comment section and write that down either on YouTube or on Facebook. We're both on YouTube and on Facebook. Let me start from here. Ted,
Yes.
please introduce yourself.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Ted Wahome, and I'm one of the pastors here. I help out with the leadership development ministry, as well as just lending capacity to the pulpit ministry.
Right.
Yeah.
Something interesting about you that we do not know. And by the way, me, I am your friend. John is your friend. So the things that we don't know are... So please
Can I say what people don't know that you might know? So back in the day after high school,
Tell us.
I actually used to sing and play keys.
Oh.
Yeah.
And rap?
Leave that one.
No,
Leave
we
that one.
remember. By the way,
Then
we
what
remember.
happened is I remember among the first times I came to Mamlaka, and I found Frank Koine singing,
yeah.
and Elder Kagoro was playing keys. And I was immediately cured of any need to sing. And I said, nimekuja shule kusoma.
Alright.
And stuff, yeah, so.
So ukakuja ukasoma tu.
Nikakuja nikasoma tu.
But what cured you of your rapping desire?
He asked me for feedback one day.
John, thank you. Thank you for serving all of us.
Moving on swiftly.
Being the good friend that I am, I was very honest.
We are very appreciative of that. Thank you, Ted. Isaac?
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm fine.
All right, my name is Isaac Murage, pastor for adults, family and marriage ministries here at Mamlaka Hill Chapel. Yeah,
All right.
something interesting about myself?
Tell us.
Oh, wow. Back in the day, I actually did work for a month at a bike assembly factory.
Are you serious?
Yes.
But no, like bike
Eish.
or like bike? which bike are we talking about? Which bike are we talking about?
Real bicycles. There are some pretty high-end, nice bicycles, offloading the different parts from a container and taking them into the factory floor. And in no other place than in Cape Town, South Africa. Yes.
We are so
Hey,
sorry.
sorry.
You see how you just drop names. Like, you know, last year, when I met, then you drop a name.
Yeah.
You drop a name there. And we were just having coffee. Wait, and then you drop a name there. Or, you know, like last year, when I was walking in Johannesburg. Thank you, Pastor Isaac,
We are
for
sorry,
dropping
Isaac, for
names.
you.
We are your bundles, consumers.
See? Ndio hizo.
Oh, man.
The rapping ninis.
Yeah, that is
So
journey.
you see why that feedback was
It's
necessary.
important. Thank you for saving us, all of us. Really. Thank you so much. So some of your questions have come in, and before we do anything else, I think it would be right for us to answer a few of those questions. In episode, I think 3, Pastor Sam said something about when handling conflict resolution, you
Reconcile
before you resolve, right? So what does reconciling before resolving look like for well, the rest of us will listen. The rest of us will listen. But what does it look like for Isaac, John?
Okay, well, I think first and foremost is a state of mind and heart.
All right.
Where you realize that even during times of conflict in marriage, you're not enemies. You're not fighting from two separate sides, like the enemy side and the other enemy side.
Yeah.
I think you do realize that, in fact, the reason why there is conflict is because you're both working towards the betterment and the goodness of that marriage.
Yeah.
So that your reconciliatory efforts are not directed at attacking the person. You're actually attacking the issue that is threatening the marriage that you're both for.
Right.
So I think that's when that's the frame of your mind, then you think about that as, okay, so this is the issue that we are attacking. So we are reconciled before we resolve this issue. Right. So I think it's really setting aside the person from the issue, and then as a couple in unison fighting the issue that is threatening the marriage.
Right. So what does reconciling look like for you and Liz? What would you do? So you and Liz have need nini, and then you're there wanting to read the Bible together.
Yeah.
But you need to reconcile first.
So I think it's probably going to look different for different couples, but for us, what we are trying to practice, and keyword here, trying, just before my wife comments and saying, I want to, just tell people, I want to hear.
Tell us.
It's maybe two things I could mention.
Yeah.
One, the whole concept of hearing. I think in that same episode, especially Reverend Wangi, he really brought out clearly that there's a difference between hearing and listening.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
That sometimes just because sound is coming at your sound drums doesn't necessarily mean that you're hearing what you could actually, and if you're like me, in that moment when this argument is being constructed against you and something you've done, instead of listening, you're actually in the same moment constructing your own argument to bring down this argument that has been brought up against you.
Yep.
So you end up not hearing. So I think one of the things that we know actively and disciplining ourselves to do is to try and repeat what you've heard the other person say. Like, so when the other person says, okay, so this is what you did, this is how I felt about what you did, then at that point you say, okay, at the end, we make it customary to say, okay, so here's what I heard you say. You said that you felt I did this, and this made you feel this and this. Because if you know you're supposed to say that at the end, it forces you to listen. Otherwise, you won't be able to come back. So I think that's a helpful thing to practice, so that you're not arguing or trying to resolve this conflict from two very different sides. So that's one part. I think the other part would be, you know that thing Jesus said about before you...
Actually, we don't. You tell us.
And all of us are like,
what did Jesus say?
I mean, he said a couple of things.
Yeah, a couple of
You
things.
know.
Not when he told people to go do likewise. No. When he was speaking about correcting one another, and he said that before you remove the speck in your brother's eye, first remove the log from your eye. And I don't think he's necessarily saying that there is a log in somebody's eyes. Obviously, the only thing that can be in your eye is a speck. But Jesus is implying that the speck in your eye should look at least to you as a log, because it's closest here. You know how the closer you bring something to you, the larger it looks. So Jesus is saying that the own speck in your eye should be like a log to you before you try to attempt to remove the speck in your brother's eye. I think what that means in the context.
Is it okay if we take an offering?
I know. My M-Pesa number is
guys, M-Pesa details will be streaming. So I think what that looks like in the context of a marriage, at least for us, is before you even think about resolving that particular conflict, before you come up with a list, because you have a list by the time you're coming on the table of the things they've done.
And you don't even have to write it down.
You don't write it down. You have
know it by
you
heart.
know it. Number one, you've done. I think you have to ask yourself at a very honest level, how much blame must I bring to this table? Like, how much of the blame must I take? So that, and however small it seems like to you, it must seem to you as a log. Like, it must be to you. Even if we remove all they've done, what they've done should be a speck, and what you've done should be the log. So that to whatever conflict you're coming in to resolve, you have to answer the question, what part of the blame do I take in this? That way, it's very clear. It's not two people attacking each other. It's two people working together to attack what's an issue.
That's so helpful. So helpful. Thank you, John.
maybe just one statement. The other thing you discover is that sometimes you have to reconcile knowing that some things we'll never be able to resolve.
Let's Seller. Seller, you guys. Seller. Asante sana. So, Ted,
Yes.
a question has been asked here
Okay.
by someone. Is it possible for you to disciple an unbeliever?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. I think I would probably wouldn't call it discipleship because a simple definition that I've adopted from a guy called Mark Dever, he says that discipleship is simply helping another believer to follow Jesus. So I think maybe what the person is asking is it possible to have a relationship with someone who's not a Christian with the hope that at some point perhaps they might respond to the gospel? And in which case I said yes, absolutely. Yeah, obviously, of course, there are other times when people sometimes, especially, we've said already, we are not discipling across genders.
Cross-gender and spousal.
Cross-gender and spousal. Yeah, but there are some guys who actually do that. It's called mission okoa or.
Where?
Yeah. In which case we just, would say, allow that person to be discipled by another lady, in a sense. But yeah, it's possible to have a relationship with someone
Right.
with the hope that actually they can respond to the gospel. And then once they do and become Christians, then helping them follow Jesus is actually now what technically is discipleship.
Let me ask another question, Ted. And I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this, but let me just ask it anyway.
Yeah.
Is it possible to disciple someone who's older than you?
All right. John has been reflecting a lot on this question, and I would not want to deny the audience such good thoughts. From
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ted. I have been reflecting about this for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And in my reflections, I just felt like Pastor Isaac is the best person to respond.
Wonderful
to
reflection.
Wonderful.
Love them. Love the reflections. Indeed.
Wow.
Pastor Isaac, are you going to say that you are reflecting? And in your reflection, you thought I was the one to answer my own question, please.
No. I was just about to say, the humility in this room is, in fact, I was
Great
about to say,
amount of humility.
Volume 2 of how I discovered humility.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it possible to? Wow, that's always interesting because I guess it is possible. Though again, it does have its own challenges and dynamics, simply because of the fact that we have to admit that sometimes with age comes certain kinds of experiences, which sometimes can be very difficult for somebody a little bit much younger to be able to fully connect. But I mean, this is the gospel, so there are always opportunities to be able to see that happening. That's the most I can say.
Absolutely, and I just want to add to that and say that perhaps maybe what the person has in mind is Titus 2, which sort of in a church context seems to suggest and say that older women should train younger women, and of course older men should train younger men, and that is ideal. But you see, at the heart of discipleship is this concept of influence. A person you're discipling is someone over whom you have some form of influence. And what you're trying to do is to leverage your walk with God, the steps you've made in your own personal discipleship, and use that influence to help that other person. And the thing about influence is that it can go across the board. It can be from older to younger, but sometimes it can be from younger to older. I mean, I know several people, for instance, even at Limitless and Salt, who would, for instance, just be really challenge me in a certain area of my life, and I say, hey, I'd like to be like you. I mean, you're modeling for me that. So I think it is possible in certain senses when you find someone is, yes, a bit younger, but actually wields some considerable influence, for that influence to be wielded in that direction. Yeah.
Ted, you have said such wise things, but I would like to say two things. First, as I was looking at you, rightfully and very wisely answer that question, I noticed that you and Samdi talked about how to dress.
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's influence. You see, I mean, I like that I help Samdi just, to give him inspiration on how to dress.
Come, please.
Samdi, you didn't tell us. Ted disciples you in that.
No. He disciples me
Disciples.
a lot. I don't know how, but yeah, we just ended up dressing the same way.
All right, as we continue to answer these questions, Ted, I think the media team might want to tell you that your mic needs a bit of readjusting. I don't know if that is true, but yeah. And as that happens, guys, let's just go ahead to part B.
Yes.
Which, at some point in season 6 and... Oh, you want to say something?
Yeah.
About Ted and his dressing?
No.
Okay.
Though now that I look at it, maybe, but no. A disclaimer, just for someone younger, maybe trying to disciple someone older. The Bible is actually very specific about how the relationship between younger people in terms of age and older people ought to be like.
Right.
For example, in one place, Paul writes to Timothy and he tells him that rebuke not an elder. And then even in the Old Testament, you will find several statements that God makes about how younger people are to respect those that are older than them.
Yeah.
So even in the context, I mean, granted that Ted has really well helped us to see in terms of a discipleship relationship that, in a sense, sometimes, like if you're going for door to door and you've preached and then maybe God used you as the agency to bring an older person to Christ and they look to you maybe in terms of learning the scriptures and stuff, there always has to be a certain deference and respect, irrespective, so that you're never talking at people who are older than you in that sense, and in that sense nullify the testimony of Christ.
It's interesting that we're talking about the relationship between older people and younger people. In episode 6 and 7, we had Isaac and Mwangi and I think Maura talk about what they would tell their younger selves. And in episode 7, we had myself and Kigums talk about what we would tell our younger selves about various aspects of our lives. So I'm just curious to find out, if you guys were in that episode, and I know, Pastor Isaac, you have many more things that you would tell your younger selves.
Yes.
What would you tell your younger self? You know, not that they will grow up eventually. that one they know for sure.
Yeah.
But what specific things, what specific pieces of advice, now that you know better, would you advise your younger self? Maybe we can start from here.
Okay. I think one of the things that I can think about, I'm now in my 30s. I won't say where on that spectrum.
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
That's a good one. Is I think one of the things I've realized, especially about the 20s, is that I think those are the best years to develop certain habits.
Right.
I think, you know, there was a saying in Swahili, samaki mkunje akiwa mchanga. Akiwa mbichi. Hey, baby. Aizo, did you teach Swahili?
Kidogo.
Ish, maybe.
That's humility, guys.
The humility, I know.
That's humility.
And so I think one of the things that, especially as younger people, that as a young person I wish I did even more, was just to develop certain habits.
Right.
It becomes a bit, not hard, but it's increasingly harder in a sense to develop certain habits when you're older. Because your life is just going in a certain pattern, and it's sometimes a bit difficult to change course. So to speak, you know, again, the adage says you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And so I do wish that I developed some habits a little more. There's some things that I'm benefiting from now, and I'm wishing I'm like, whoa, I wish I started this. So some of them like reading, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I read a lot more, you know. I'm just looking at all the series I binged. All the way from campus and after campus. If those were books, man, I would have read so much more, because I'm finding that I'm benefiting a lot right now. And I'm wishing that I had, you know, endeavored to do that a lot more.
Right.
Yeah, when I was younger.
All right.
I think to jump into that, I couldn't help but think of one of the hardest things that I used to be scared of doing is to do Friday prayers. And simply, if Reverend Lovie was there the Friday before, because Reverend Lovie, when he prays with scripture.
Oh yeah.
Father, you know, in John, I'm like, oh boy, I should have invested more time in scripture and getting myself and in scripture. I think obviously, younger self now, I think more of God's word. It's good that it permeates and it is part of what you do, because you badly need it when you're a little bit older.
Yeah.
Probably, as Ted is saying, consuming less media,
I think we would tell ourselves
Ourselves.
at this point
At
that
this point, yes. There are things that you imbibe and you take on, which sadly you bring into your later years, and sometimes it's very difficult to unlearn some of these things.
Right.
Yes. You're sandwiched you.
Yeah. Well, for starters, I would tell my younger self to get married earlier. Wow. Yeah.
But assuming that you would have met your wife, I don't know.
Assuming I met my wife earlier. Yeah. I mean, marriage is so good. If only, and you would have been married at 16. But I told that to one of my friends. They told me, no, if you were married at 16, it would not have been that good. I was like, oh, yeah. He makes all things beautiful in their time. Yeah, so that's really on a light note. I think I would take more time than I did to reflect on many of the things that have happened in my life.
Right.
Just because of how, in hindsight, a lot of who I have become are because of those particular events. For me, for example, the loss of my parents, and then the loss of my brother, and the shift between coming from campus into ministry directly. So certain transitional moments that in hindsight, I feel like I didn't take as much time to reflect about, okay, so at this moment, how am I feeling about this transition that has happened?
Right.
At this moment, how am I feeling? How is it affecting me? Because I've realized that in life now, later in life, I am actually having to go back to many of those moments and determine, okay, so how much of how I am acting right now, how much of what I am doing right now is actually as a result of what happened then. But because there lies unresolved issues in those particular key moments, then they manifest in one way or another now. So I would have made a habit of being a reflective person, as opposed to just postponing, say, however this thing affects me, I'll figure it out later. It has real consequences, and the longer you take, the harder it is to pinpoint what particular habits you've developed or what particular attitudes you've developed are actually tied to that particular event.
Right.
So I would have taken more time to reflect, especially key transitional moments in my life.
It's wise. It's very wise. I think another thing that we can all agree that we would have insisted to our younger selves is, what the Bible says, that we should love the Lord our God with all our hearts, with all our minds, with all our souls, with all our strength. And what Jesus added, love your neighbor as yourself. And incidentally, we had chapter. The Bible, guys. Episode 8, where we had Njeri Mwangi come and sit with ladies from Ladies Aglow, and they just had a wonderful conversation about how in this season they are loving the Lord their God with all their hearts, with all their minds, with all their souls and their strength, and how they are loving their neighbor as themselves, or how they would like to endeavor to love their neighbor as themselves. And I would just like to ask, maybe I can start from Ted here. How have you been loving God and neighbor in this season that we are in?
All right. So one of the ways I'm really endeavoring to love God is to be exceedingly intentional and regular about my QT and my devotion. I think, and it's actually funny because one of the episodes that we had on spiritual health, we're just talking about that. Treating like God's word and prayer as though my life depends on it. But because it actually does.
It does.
My soul does depend on it. And so I'm endeavoring to be really, at least as much as I can, very conscious and very regular, and just having meaningful times. Even when I don't feel like it, I'm trying to do that. So that's one of the things I'm trying to do in just loving God. Obviously, as well, I'm trying to cut off things that I feel are maybe getting in the way So things that I feel are not necessarily, some of them are very neutral. They're not bad things, but they're just not very helpful in that. And so I think I'll talk about that a little later. One way I'm trying to love my neighbor is to ask myself at the beginning of the week this very conscious question. What good works can I do this week? Because I think, and I'm doing this, the background to that is that whenever we think of holiness, for instance, if we had a series called Holiness, you know, people always think, woi, sasa, we've come to be told how, oh, we are not doing this, we are not doing that, and we're not doing that. And we have this idea of holiness and godliness as avoiding bad, right? And it is not just, I mean, it is that, but it is not just that. It's about doing good as well.
Yeah.
So that if you went and you helped, maybe as a lady, for instance, you went and hung out with a single mother, stay-at-home mother, to just tell her, you know what, go and relax. Enda ujienjoy kidogo, and let me hang out with your kids. You don't think of that as holiness, but it is, because you are abounding in good works. Yeah. So I ask myself, what good works can I do this week? So whether that means, one conscious way, of course, is to give where people have been affected. In this season, it's been very hard. And of course, guys have lost income and stuff. And so just asking yourself, how can I be of service? Another way is just to ask, how many people do I need to call? You know, who do I need to evangelize to? So that for me has been a helpful question.
Right.
I think Pastor Ramson was preaching at Salt one time, and he said something very helpful to me at the time, which I realized I hadn't thought about before I heard him say it. He said that the same God who commands us to do, also, I mean, the same God who commands us not to do, also commands to do.
Right.
And said, so you cannot put all your efforts in terms of holiness to avoiding. You must also put them to doing.
Right.
And then he gave the example of Christ. When Christ shows up and he does judge the people, it's not so much on what they did, it's what they didn't do. He said, I was here and you didn't do. I was here and you didn't do. I was here and you didn't do. And the other group is told, I was here and you did. I was here and you did. I was here and you did. So that we must appropriate effort both to avoid the things that God tells us to avoid and to do the things that God tells us to do.
John, I think we can help Ted out in his pursuit of holiness. You know how Ted makes mean pancakes?
Oh, yeah,
And he's been looking out for people to serve in this time that we are at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
May the Spirit reveal to you the desire of our hearts.
And do what you shall with that information.
Indeed. Yeah. John, how have you been loving God and neighbor?
I think one of the things for me that marriage has accorded, at least in the last year, is a Christian accountability partner that is ever present. Sometimes a little bit too present. I was joking with my wife, and you were saying how I think marriage helps us to see the reality of that psalm. When David says, oh Lord, wherever I go, there you are.
There you are.
Like when I make my bed here, there you are.
There you are.
Discovered in our small house. When I go to the living room, there you
you
are.
are.
When I go to the bedroom, there you are. Like, but one of the beauties of marrying somebody who you have similar convictions, especially matters of the faith, is that you're able to keep each other accountable. Many times you will speak out your thoughts and say, I was thinking about doing this and doing this. And your spouse will ask you at some point, hey, but you said you think about doing this. Have you done it? And so I appreciate that, because especially in this COVID, when this season started, I did mention certain things. And we've kept each other accountable about that. So one of the things that we've deliberately done is to try and create a margin, especially a financial margin, in order to be of service to God's people where it is needed. And that has meant a degree of sacrifice on our part because of that kind of commitment. Yeah, and I love that. I mean, I could have, as a single person, I could have made that decision. But, you know, now that we've made it together, we keep each other accountable. So have we done that? No, actually, this month we've not done that. We need to do that. So I think to that extent, God has helped us. Yeah.
Right. Isaac, let's talk about a portion of our society that the Bible has actually been keen to say that we should be neighborly towards, and that's widows. I know that there was an episode that we had, and we had two widows, a mom and their daughter, who came and just had a candid conversation about how it is being in widowhood and the things that they have experienced in society, and gave advice to us on how to take care of our widows better, how to handle them and make them feel loved and accepted in society. Now, you being a marriage and family pastor here at Mamlaka Hill Chapel, I know that it's not very far from us to say that it's possible that you have actually encountered a couple of people who have lost loved ones, who have lost spouses, and have now ended up becoming either widows or widowers. What were your highlights from that episode on widowhood?
I think it is the stark reality of the fact that whenever I do many weddings,
right,
and part of what you always say is until death do us part.
Oh yeah.
I think it's one thing. It's a whole different ballgame to be able to see it.
Yeah.
And so I think, and more so because the two ladies who I know very well, they represented also an African aspect of it, which is that many a times we don't usually give the opportunity, for example, for remarriage.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's never an option. So I think it's one of those things that you are acutely aware of the fact that I think it's something that you need people to talk about. Alison and I sometimes have had to have a couple of those discussions, and more so because of the events that are not too new to many of us, even within this year.
Yeah.
And that begins to become something that you have to contemplate and to really think about. And again, also in this COVID season, I mean, if there's anything that you are learning is that you don't know how you'd react if you contracted COVID or any ailment, and what does that exactly mean? And so part of the things I obviously begin to realize even at this moment as a marriage pastor is to start to ask what are those difficult discussions you need to have as a couple. Suppose you are not there. Who then takes care of the children?
Yeah.
Yes. Who then takes care of your wife or your husband? I mean, things like an executor. And one of the things that we've been able to do with some of my friends,
Yeah.
is actually able to tell them, by the way, if anything happened, you are in charge. Yes.
Right.
And one of the things, just be able to say this, one of the things that I actually was able to pick up not too long ago is to be, I think, prudent in terms of your finances and your debt portfolio, such that if anything happened, your personal property cannot get attached to pay off some of these things. So there's a little bit of some that passage in scripture whereby Jesus encourages us to be as gentle as doves, but also as wise as
serpents.
Yeah.
serpents.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the people of the world are a little bit wiser than believers.
Yeah.
Difficult, but need to be able to talk about these things. Yes.
There's a sermon our bishop preached maybe about a year or so ago, drawing from the story of Hezekiah, when the Lord asked, when God basically told him, put your house in order, because you're not going to survive this particular illness, at least at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a helpful sermon for everyone to listen to. We just talked about putting your house. Part of what that involves is having a will, having the conversations that Reverend Isaac is talking about. So, I mean, if you can find it, it's on our YouTube page. It would be a helpful sermon to really listen to.
Right. And another important part of, putting our house in order would be for us to work out our salvation with fear and trembling, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that we know for sure that when this life comes to an end, that we know where we are going, right? And a big way of doing that, and one that the Bible encourages us to do, is to watch out for our spiritual health, right? In terms of prayer, in terms of reading God's word, fellowship, and stuff like that. And I just want to take some time to remind us that during episode 10 of Tuesday Connect, Ted made all of us look back here by saying that he had gone on a fast for movies and series. And in fact, he was saying, you the rest of you are just watching Avengers. You remember John? John,
Yes,
you remember?
I remember.
Ted, how is that going?
Ted, it's
Yes.
one of those moments.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
right?
You can tell this has
saw
been,
it.
this has been,
I saw it coming. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am fasting from that fast. The last time I was here, I was on day 9, and now I am on day 1. You do that mathematic.
Mathematics.
Yeah, do that mathematic because... No, anyway, so what happened is actually, initially, I had done like a 7-day, right?
Right.
And it was very successful, like extremely good.
That one where John
No,
said that
different.
you
Before
did
that,
5
before
days
that,
okay,
before
okay.
that,
Thanks.
before that, I'd done 1 week successfully, nicely.
Thanks.
And then we finished that, and then I got excited. I said, nini, iko nini, let's do a month. Guys, a month is long.
It really is.
You know, and
really is.
so anyway, yeah. So someday I was just really tired. I didn't want to do anything else, and so I watched something. But anyway, I think the idea and what I've learned, and I guess this is where you know, you just tweak things and see what's working.
Yeah.
I do have to say that actually, I think God has really helped me right now. I'm watching way less.
Okay.
I used to be the kind of guy who, you know, like I get home, I'm tired, nini.
In fact,
and
we
then,
know a certain episode that has that season 1 has 210
Right?
episodes.
And we are
that
not
you
mentioning
watched.
names.
We are not.
Yeah, and so I would get home, and then me and John would when I used to
You
live
and
with
John.
him. Yes, I am. He's not getting out of this one.
Isaac, are you seeing how we are throwing each other
I
under
would just
the
like
bus?
to mention that this is why Ted does not represent the views of John Agagwa.
We would watch, you know, like an episode here and there, just to relax and
Or
unwind.
7 or 8.
Or 9.
9 or
So
10.
or 10.
Yes.
So, and you know, Kwanzaa, that escalator where you just tell yourself 1
What?
episode
At 9
just
p.m.
at 9 p.m. and then at 3 a.m.
You're still saying
it's the 1 more.
One more.
With
No,
red
and you know,
short
with
eyes.
red short
Red eyes.
And if you're watching on your laptop, you know, just before the episodes interchange, you know, there's like a darkness and you see your reflection. You see your red eyes.
And
And you look at yourself and you wonder, what is wrong with me?
What am I doing with my life?
And
then
then
the
before
next
conviction, you know, just previously on 24. And that's Toro
No,
just...
no, sorry. I have to chase that rabbit.
my
You guys have, I thought it was the only way. You know how the reflection, you see a reflection of yourself,
yourself.
And you
you're
see
like,
yourself.
Isaac, what are you doing?
And start asking yourself questions. Like, what's up with me? What am I doing with my life? And there was here previously on 24. And that Toro just goes on. You watch, you finish, you shower, you go to work.
Oh, yeah.
It's time.
Because it's the following morning.
It's really the following morning. Because you know, if you sleep, you will wake up at midday. So you would rather just go to work. So I think I've experienced considerable, at least in my own experience right now. I've experienced some considerable victory, I think. And yeah, I'm thanking God. I'm realizing even just that I have now a greater appetite for reading. And I'm reading faster a little bit. And so, I mean, I just praise God for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I will not, you know, set a month again.
Indeed.
It's be like 2 weeks.
Or like
Yeah.
2 days.
Weeks,
or
yeah.
2?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
But I'd just like to mention that unlike Ted, I've been quite consistent in my pushing off series and media and stuff. I have a specific fast that I do every day from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
10 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day.
Nothing.
I do not watch any series.
And
In
in
fact,
fact,
I
in the
even
morning-
I don't even eat at those
Very
hours.
commendable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
And then in the morning, you break fast.
then in the morning I break fast. 6 a.m. I break fast.
Yeah.
I
Replenish.
start the fast again
Yeah.
at 10 p.m.
Okay.
So,
It's very important. John, we talked about Bible study a lot in that episode, right? We seemed to not talk as much about other spiritual disciplines. We didn't talk much about prayer and fasting, about the need to have fellowship and community around you. What are the benefits of these other modes of spiritual
I think I'll talk very shortly about both. Obviously, there's a lot of content on each.
Yeah.
The first one is prayer and fasting. Prayer accords us something that no other spiritual discipline can. And that's, here's what it takes, I think, to build a relationship with anyone, any person. To build a relationship with them, first you need time. Relationships take time to build. You cannot show up on day one and be like, tell me about yourself, you know. The opportunities will result, and over time, as you invest time, then you get to know this person. But not just time only, it's time, and then you will need to open up yourself to that person, and they will need to open themselves up to you. So when you think about our spiritual relationship with God, the same rules apply. You will need time. And you will need to, God will need to open up himself to you. He has done that through his word. And that's why we talked about Bible study. But you will, to that extent, need to open up yourself to God. Obviously, loosely speaking, because God knows all. But as you do that, that's prayer. So prayer is, you cannot not have a prayer life and have a relationship with God. And it's very interesting because prayer, of all the disciplines, is the most private one. When you're not praying, you know, all of us won't know. You're the only person who will know, have I been spending time with God in prayer or have I not? So to that extent, actually, prayer is a very good thermometer to tell how your relationship with God is going. So I think to that extent, prayer is of absolute necessity, both corporate prayer with other saints and prayer that's personal prayer before God, because it does help to build a strong relationship with God. You get to know the God, you know, the Bible can help you know about God to a certain extent. Obviously, the scriptures are living, and reading the scriptures will help you know God. But I think I could, with some degree of confidence, say that if you are studying the Bible and not prayerfully doing it, you could know a lot about God, but not really ever get to know God. Prayer is the missing link, I think, to that extent. The other one, maybe part of it is fasting. And what we basically are saying when it comes to prayer and fasting is, in this moment, I want to say that my pursuit of God is more important to me than my pursuit of natural food. Right? So to that extent, you are saying that I care more about God than I do about my necessary food. You're sort of trying to live out, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. So I think that is of absolute necessity. Every Christian ought to have some degree of fasting in their lives. Jesus prepared for his temptations by fasting. And I think because that's sort of God teaching us something about, if you can say no to food, which you will die of if you don't eat, for the sake of God, then it will be easier for you to fend off other temptations which you will not die with, right? For example, if it's a temptation for sexual purity and stuff, I mean, statistically, nobody has ever died for not having, you know, sexual intimacy.
True story.
So if you can say no to food, which you will die given long enough for not taking, then you will actually find, by the way, I could say no to food for this amount of time because I wanted to give myself to God. Therefore, that builds your spiritual muscle to say no to other way lesser temptations. So that's why fasting is important in the life of a Christian.
Right.
The second bit is community. I think probably one line or two about thinking about community in the life of a Christian as a spiritual discipline is this: we have all become what we have become by the communities that we have found ourselves in. I was listening to Ted preach at Club J. No, it was Ramson at Club J recently. And he said, no one can truly say that they are a self-made anything. There's no, really, if you think about it, there's no self-made anything. All of us are who we are by the product of the people that God put around us to a great extent, which we had no control over. You had no control over the family you were born in, no control over the neighborhood you grew in. And you have been affected by that to a great extent. It has contributed to the person that you have become. So if we are going to become like Christ, it will not be in a vacuum. You did not become who you have become in a vacuum. You will not become who God needs you to be in a vacuum. It will have to be in the midst of a Christ-like community.
Yeah.
So if there is an absence of a Christ-like community, there is really no true way to become the kind of person that God wants us to become.
Right.
So I think to that extent, community is of absolute necessity in the spiritual growth of a believer.
All right.
Actually, it reminds me, I think we were, was you, I think we were saying in that episode, was it episode 10, I think? That the same way it took a society to raise a child, it takes a church to raise a saint.
True.
And you know, there are many stories about just how we were thoroughly disciplined by people who were not necessarily our parents.
Yes.
You know, you would be chapeaued, then you go home, you're disciplined in front of the other person for that person, and then now their own after that. So yeah, couldn't agree more.
Pastor Isaac, anything?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think back to my college days in teacher training college, where I was being a little bit wayward. And I still remember up to now the CU chairman coming to my cubicle and asking me, Brother Isaac, how are you? And I knew I was not in a good place, but the fact that he came and confronted me in a nice way was very, very important. Another very important person is my best man. His name is, I want to say, and shout out to James Wangai. For a season in my life, he would pass by my house to say hi.
Oh.
And it used to be very random. But because of the randomness of his visits,
Put your house in order.
Yes, I would always have, yes, you need to have your house in order. And now that I think about it, I think it was God's provision for a season in my life when I needed somebody to meddle in my life.
Yeah.
And today, I can always tell you, my relationship with Alison, I can always tell, when my relationship at the horizontal Nini is not working, then at so which is the horizon? Oh no, when the vertical, yes.
Diagonal, horizontal.
No, when the vertical relationship is not right,
Yeah.
that is between me and God, I notice there are challenges at the horizontal.
Right.
With Alison, with my friends,
Right.
yeah, there's something, and I always know that there's something is not right with me and God.
All right.
Sorry,
Asante sana.
just maybe to add on that.
Yes.
Two things. One of the things I found particularly helpful, and this is also when I came to SALT and the kind of culture I found at SALT that opened me up to that reality, was shortly after campus, we moved in with Ted. And part of that is that it created...
Wait. Am I the only one who held their breath when he said we moved in? And then did a serious exhale when he said Ted.
It was Ted. It was
Yeah,
Ted.
you know?
Thank you. Thank you for finishing your sentence.
That helped to that whole question of accountability. Yes. It just helps. It's just easier. And I always share with young people, I tell them, you know, God didn't tell, when I got saved, the one thing God, I think, forgot to do was to inform my hormones that I am saved. That now I love the Lord with all of my heart and all of my soul. I am going to heaven perpendicularly with no horizontal component to it. You know, tweetable tweet. Yeah. So I discovered my hormones are just as, you know, they're misbehaving as much when I'm saved as when I was not saved. So and moving in with Ted was very helpful in terms of accountability, just keeping each other accountable. Just Pastor Isaac, knowing that there's somebody around was very helpful.
Right.
So I think maybe the statement would be, every Christian needs, you know how David had Nathan? I think every Christian needs a Nathan. The kind of Nathan that almost at the risk of their own life, because you are going to address the king, came to him one day because of the sin he had gone through and told him, David, you are that man.
Yeah.
And on account of that, it opened David's eyes to his own sin. And David repented. And because of that, David was way greater than he could have been if he continued to harbor and to hide his sin.
Yeah.
I think every single one of us needs somebody that has permission to come to your life and tell you, Ted, John, you are that man. You are the person who's done these things, or what are you doing with your private life? And you're going to be honest with them, and they're going to call you out when they need to call you out.
Right. Well, asante sana for staying with us. We know that we have taken a little bit more than we had planned to take, but we have just 2 more questions. Just 2 more episodes to go through. So please bear with us. We also would like to take 2 minutes or so to get to read out your comments and your questions. And so please, if you have any comments or any questions, please write them down on our comment section, either on YouTube or on Facebook, and we will take some time to briefly answer those questions. But let me just ask Pastor Isaac. In episode 11 of Tuesday Connect, we had John, Ted, and myself really reflect on our youth these days and their morality. And we noticed a couple of things that we were very unsettled about. And I know that you are a father to young men, right? Teenagers, actually. So please help us explore the issue of identity and how it affects just what our young people are doing in terms of their morality.
Wow. I think one of the things I've noticed as a parent, and I don't think if I've had this many times, but now that I'm living it, no parent is ever ready for their child's teenage years. They can be tough and brutal on the children, because I think they're looking for their own identity, but it seems like God has ordained that the path to finding your own identity is to pass through this valley of other people's identity. You try to kind of like, I think it's like you're wearing a mask as you go along, which one fits. And it's hard watching a child go through that, because they question every single ideal that you've been able to impart upon them. And it can be difficult. I think our children suddenly have to be confronted with their own decision. They have to make a decision of themselves. And for you, I think, is to be a consultant and a guide, and tell them, maybe that's not the best. Maybe that's not the best. This could be a little bit better. I think, but definitely matters pertaining to identity are difficult for all of them. And it's hard to see them go through that. And sometimes it's also difficult to see them question even things that you thought were you had resolved.
Yeah. So how do you deal with wayward children?
With wayward children, I think one of the things I've come to discover, and this I cannot be able to take credit, I think one of the most beautiful things that has happened is that Alison is in my children's life quite a bit.
Right.
And so she's always able to tell me something is happening. Something is happening. So be in your children's life all the time. So for example, it has its difficulties, but we share the same electronic gadgets in the house.
Okay.
So my emails and Jonathan's and Ezra's all come to the same browser.
Yeah.
It does its own challenges here and there, but along there we've been able to, at least they know that there is no sacred cow in that house.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to do it before and not after. I think it's always good to be able to pray for our children. I think that's something that we've come to discover that is very critical. Again, without God, it can be very, very difficult to be able to parent and to work with your children, because also it's a challenge on you.
Right.
I think the thing I've been able to discover is that my work as a Christian has been greatly challenged also by I having to guide my own children.
Right, right. Asante sana. I see Susan Kiama, John, saying, thank you for this Tuesday Connect. I have struggled with identity in Christ in terms of having converted from Catholicism since my campus days when I first visited Mamlaka, and my family are still not okay. What would you say? How would you speak into that space?
Okay, well, firstly, the thing I'd like to point out at first and then qualify it second is that Jesus did promise that it is one of the earliest scriptures I realized in the Bible. He says, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. And he said that on account of me, brother will be against brother, and mother against son, and stuff like that. And we know over the years that has been true, what Jesus said. And so the first thing that gives us peace in such situations is to realize that the Bible doesn't necessarily tell us that once we make a commitment to following Christ, that will now automatically resolve tensions. In some cases, it is our commitment to follow Christ that will introduce tension and conflict, where initially there was none. So that is just to quiet your heart and to say that that's something Jesus promised us.
Right.
But the second time, the second, to qualify that is, the scenario that she's painted is not necessarily one of non-Christians per se and Christians. So she said she left Roman Catholicism to join, what now in this context would be Protestants, in the way that church history has defined this movement today. So to that extent, then it's a family that shares different convictions concerning the Christian faith, as you would share, as you would have as a Protestant and not necessarily a Catholic. So they are not necessarily against the idea of Jesus. It's just probably how you interpret some of the things he said and some of those scriptures. So I think especially when it comes to family, it is to retain your own convictions without burning the bridge. And if possible, seek for the things that we agree on. Because there are many things that you will find that both Catholics and Protestants agree on. We agree on who Jesus is. We agree on him as the way to the Father and stuff like that. So make a big deal of those, and enact Paul's statement when he said, live peaceably with all men to the extent that it is possible.
Right.
So I think find as much as possible points of congruence as opposed to points of conflict, because when it comes to dealing with family, that's for the long haul. Your family, you get to choose your friends over time. Your family are the people God chose for you, right? So to that extent, family will always occupy a special place, because, and some of us will agree, if you were to go about choosing your family, you probably wouldn't choose the guys that you have now.
Yeah, I would say that, because my family is watching. So no, me, I love you guys.
I had a friend once tell me that I'm still waiting for my real family to come pick me up.
Waiting for my family to come pick me up. Sometimes you feel like telling your parents, that mom, now I have learned the lesson of humility. You can reveal secretly that you're billionaires. I know, just reveal it. It's God chose the families that God chose your mom, God chose your dad, God chose your siblings for you. And you don't want to assume that God was not wise in doing so. So that means that you must always fight for family. And sometimes when it comes to things like this, it will be go as far as you can to try and achieve peace with them as you can within your convictions, as far as Christianity is concerned.
Right.
But let them know for a fact that you are not actively trying to draw a wedge. You've actually, if anything, it should be them feeling, by the way, we are the ones making this hard. She has come as far as she has to try and accommodate our views. Right. In the same way, asking God for wise opportunities to witness and to see, okay, so this is what I believe about Jesus. Have constructive conversations that are, okay, so this is what you believe within this structure of Christianity. This is what I believe. How do you come to that belief? This is how. So that eventually it makes for good friendship.
Right. And I pray that would be so of Susan, even as you continue to ask the Lord for this. Ted,
Yes.
episode 12 was fire. We talked about social justice,
Yes.
with Samdi. And we talked about a lot of things. And we challenged our congregants here to if they have that zeal, if God has placed that fire in them, to be able to come and to see how they can be involved in matters of social justice. But we didn't quite take time to talk about practical ways on how we can engage as believers in social justice. Would you like to take some time to do that?
Absolutely. All right, so I think there are probably three main ways that as Christians we can engage in social justice. Or I really prefer actually the term seeking justice and mercy. Those I think are the more biblical terms, so to speak. And so the first is what I would call relief. Okay, relief basically means that you're alleviating a certain material need or economic need. So that means, I mean, in this season especially, someone has lost his job. How about trying to help them with food, maybe with rent? Somebody is sick and they need medical assistance and they need to travel, and giving them some funds to go towards that. In a very real sense, relief basically means you're doing first aid. You're stopping the bleeding.
Yeah.
It's like someone walking into an emergency room, and what's the first thing that you do? Or maybe you found them at the scene of an accident or something. So you stop the bleeding. So that's what relief does. There are all kinds of relief ministries that even as a church we can do. First, as individual Christians, those Christians that God has placed around us, and then as on maybe larger or bigger groups, so to speak, you could have, for instance, temporary shelters for refugees or people who've been, maybe affected by floods or something of the sort, or somebody, a wife who's fleeing abuse from the husband. I mean, there are all kinds of things that we can do on the relief stage. But the second one is, how do you move that person from dependency to self-sufficiency? So that means then that this is more long-term. It is now engaging with this person to the point where they themselves can be able to support themselves. And I think one of the ways that we can do, there are many ways, but some of the ways we can do that, for instance, is educating children, and I've had, this is where I'd really like to appreciate some of our, members of Mamlaka Hill Chapel, who, as a real group, decide, you know what, that child, as long as this real group is functioning, that child will never lack school fees. What you're doing is you're moving that person from dependency to a point where one day they will be self-sufficient, and Lord willing, if God continues to work in their hearts, they're Christians, they get the same conviction, then they will be able to help many other people. So development is more long-term. It aims at just move someone from dependency to self-sufficiency. Sure. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. Beyond education, I mean, there's probably other ways that you can do that is to train people for jobs, for instance. Sometimes people fail to get jobs because they just don't know the right skills, and you need to sort of be trained. And I appreciate some of the guys, by the way, congregants who come and help others and tell them, hey, let me help you edit your CV. That could be something really small, but it's a starting place to help someone to actually make the next step. I may not have all that much money, but I might have some form of training, which can really help you in the marketplace. So that's development. Thirdly and lastly is reform. Reform seeks to change the social structures which create dependency.
Right.
What basically you're trying to do is go to the source. And I saw this firsthand through our ministry to the juvenile center at Kamiti. You go to that place and you meet 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds who've done all sorts of crimes.
Sure.
Some of them violent crimes. Some of them very petty crimes. I stole my neighbor's chicken, and now they're in this place for 3 months. And maybe because their case is not being heard, they're in remand, they've been there for like 2 years, and they're still waiting for it. The question you need to ask yourself is, what first of all produces that kind of thing? The reason this kid is stealing, I'm not making an excuse, is because in the first place they're poor. They come from the wrong neighborhood, they were caught at the wrong place, and stuff like that. So reform seeks to change things that would produce that kind of a person. And it's amazing how if we do relief and development well, then what happens as churches do that in their own spaces and sometimes collaborate to do that as a movement is that slowly by slowly, we begin to heal the wounds of society, and those young people are not forced to go into such crimes, right? And that's what we need to do. We've complained, for instance, about police brutality. Perhaps as Christians, we need to really push and pray also for police reform so that people are not brutalized, right? And stuff like that. In working towards, for instance, racial and tribal reconciliation, part of what we are doing is that we are stopping things such as 2007 recurring. Because someone who's displaced from their land is there because of a systemic issue within society. This is tribalism. And so this is, again, where I'd like to say that any major social reform, if you look at church history, any major social reform was almost always preceded by spiritual reform.
Right.
Because what happens is social problems are only the symptoms of a greater disease. The reason we do all kinds of things, the reason our society is broken is because we are broken to begin with, right? And that, therefore, as a church, when we are proclaiming the gospel, when we are doing kingdom work, when we are making disciples, guys, we are not doing nothing. Because what we are doing is we are taking up the social issues by the roots, and you're pulling them up.
Right.
So part of social justice is us being Christians, is us coming to church, proclaiming the gospel, making disciples, evangelizing, because as we are doing those things, what is actually happening is we are literally affecting the souls of men, and that, in a sense, leads to a lot of social reform. So I think.
Right. All right. As we come to an end, let me ask John to prepare to say thank you to everyone who has been with us so far. And as that happens, let me just ask Pastor Isaac a question here that has come in. The person is asking you to speak to couples that are stuck on the brink of marriage, but are not yet out of their marriages because of this COVID season. That's one question. So
Stuck on?
that. They're stuck in marriage, but they want to get out. But they can't get out because of this period of COVID that they're in right now. And someone is also asking, is PMCC open to couples looking to get married in the near future?
Oh, yes. Okay, let me answer the easier one.
Yeah.
PMCC is definitely open. You just need to be able to write to pmcc@mamlakahillchapel.org or even send any to info@mamlaka. We'll be able to respond. I would say for the couples seeking to get out, first and foremost, I need to be able to ask, getting out of a marriage is a systemic, is a problem that has been building up for a period of time.
Right.
And generally what's happening is that you need to be able to come in and to be able to maybe have a chat. These are not things that you can be able to resolve just like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably I'd also ask them to be able to say, could it be that COVID is actually, in a sense, God's grace upon them in this season to maybe resolve some of the challenges that they may be facing? Because many a times, one of the things that I've come to discover nowadays is this, and maybe it's something I'm going to borrow from the previous generation. We sometimes come into marriage with an exit clause. If things don't work out in a particular manner, I'm going to get out.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be removed from the table, because once that is off the table, then we can be able to deal with what exactly is the problem.
Right.
And as I said earlier on, how is the relationship with God first? And then how can we be able to resolve the relationship between ourselves? Because I'm telling you, if one of those couples can just be able to sort out their relationship with God, then this other one will be actually dealt with quite, I don't want to say quite easily, but it is possible to resolve.
Wise words. Thank you, Pastor Isaac, for sharing that. John, who are we saying thank you to for sticking with us for 2 hours? Can you imagine? 2 hours? Who are we saying thank you to?
Oh, wow. Yeah, we just want to appreciate each and every person. There's quite a number, so I'm on the YouTube chat. I know there's a different one on Facebook, but we have Mumbi Mbugwa, we have Eric Mulwa, Twidley Ithiga, Richard Omolo, we have Suzy Murungi, Lisa Wangari, Paul Mwangi. We also have Rosemary Ngina, Edward Bulemi in the house. Yeah. We have Linda Mary. We also have Sharon Odhiambo, and Jerry Wadhima, Susan Kiama, and Masitza.
All right.
And we really appreciate it. Thank you for sticking along and for contributing to the time that we've had.
All right. We have officially come to the end of this week's episode of Tuesday Connect Live and Tuesday Connect Season 1. We would like to encourage you to look out for Season 2 that will be coming in a week or so. We will be letting you know when on our social media sites. So please feel free to tag along there and wait to see when Season 2 of Tuesday Connect is coming. It's coming bigger, it's coming better, and we pray that the Lord would use these episodes that we have churned out to encourage you, to challenge you, to uplift you, and to be able to give you direction from His Word. So from me and from the panelists that we have had, both these ones and the ones that were here before, we are so grateful that you were able to join us, and we look forward to seeing you again for other recorded episodes of Tuesday Connect Season 2. God bless you and keep you, make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you, lift up His countenance towards you and give you peace. Bye.